Most of us have been given color pencils at some point in our life to use, but also at the same time, most of us, when we use colored pencils, they seem very frustrating, or it usually seems like it didn't come out the way you wanted it to, or what you had envisioned for it to look like. This is because people just gave you some colored pencils. No one actually took the time to teach you a technique on how to use them. The colored pencil technique that I will be focusing on this year, and what you will be graded on for every project this year, is a small circle interlocking technique. It's all about controlling your hand, building the muscles in your hand, and controlling the pressure of your application onto the paper. Those things matter, and those are things that beginners or younger kids don't think about. They just think of coloring as heavy as possible to make things look like a cartoon. But there's a difference in whenever you focus on different pressures, things don't always have to come out looking like a cartoon. They don't always have to come out looking like a little kid did it. Turn your paper over to the back and let's grab a brown. I'll zoom in. A lot of times when people get a colored pencil, they think they have to do this, and when they get tired of going that direction, they do this and this and this and this, and it turns out into being a scribble. Or some people think that they will go all in one direction, and sometimes that does look good, but whenever you have a more complicated shape that doesn't always go in one direction, when the shape turns into something else, you get things that kind of don't go together. What I want for you to do is make a bunch of very small circles. And you make so many of them that you don't see the circles anymore. If you want it to be darker, you can add a layer of small circles on top of it. To make it darker. Now, a common mistake that I see with beginners with this technique that we're learning this year is they'll do loop-de-loops instead of small circles. They do a bunch of this. The pressure is too heavy, and I'm moving too fast. I'm not staying. See, I can actually fix this if I just stay in the same place longer. If yours came out looking like that, it's because you need to stay in the same place longer. Like I said earlier, it's one thing to do the circles. It's another thing to control the pressure of your hand. How heavy are you doing the circles? I'm about to zoom in. We're going to do incredibly light circles, barely even touching our pencils to the paper in box number 1 with our red colored pencil. I have another paper over here as our finished example. I'm holding the colored pencil by the back using the side. That's really going to help me be extra gentle, barely even putting down any pressure into this level 1 box. going all the way to the edges, all into the corners. For box number 2, I will match number 1 and then do another layer to make it slightly more intense. So for box number 2, I'll take a moment and match box number 1. Nice and light. Sometimes I'm circling in the opposite direction just to help interlock the circles. Remember, in the bottom right corner it says small circle technique only in each space. Scribbles or sweeps are worth 0 points. If the whole point is all about learning how to do the small circle technique, then that means I need to see the small circle technique. Now box 2 looks just like box 1, but I need to make it slightly darker or slightly more intense. So I'm going to add another light layer into it. I don't want to go too dark. I don't want to make it as dark as box 3. Gently laying in another layer. Ms. Rochelle, what if I mess up? If you mess up, I left some space out to the right for you to make another box, and you can just redo it right next to it. Box number 3, I'll make box number 3 look just like box number 2 and then add one more extra layer to it to make it ever so slightly darker than box number 2. We will be taking breaks. There's no reason to scribble or do sweeps. I'll show you in a moment examples of scribble and sweeps. Right now my box number 3 looks just like box number 2, but it's time to make it slightly darker than box number 2, so I'm going to add another layer to it. So here's an example of what sweeps are when students do this. I will not be accepting sweeps, okay? This does not work for a lot of our projects in the future. It will create an effect where the lines get kind of weird and they'll buckle together. For all of our projects to work out in the future, you have to use a small circle technique, not a sweep technique. An example of scribbles is people doing the loop-de-loops. I do not accept this. An example of not controlling the pressure of your hand is when you have like 2 or 3 boxes that look exactly alike. In my example, my boxes are all slightly different from one another, which proves that you can control the pressure of your hand. Time to do box number 4 in our red colored pencil. Gonna go in with some medium pressure and make it look just like box number 3. And once I get that, then I know I can add one little hint of a layer extra to make it slightly darker. Now box 3 and 4 look alike. Gonna go in with another layer of small circles on top to make box 4 different from box 3. I'll zoom out to show you guys the full thing. Box number 5. Going in to make this box look just like box number 4. This project is all about building the muscles of our hand up. It's not that your hand is going to look all muscular. It's just that by the end of Q1 and maybe the middle of Q2, this won't hurt your hand anymore. Your hand probably hurts because those muscles are not very strong. Now that box 5 looks like box 4, I'm going to make box 5 slightly darker than box 4, adding some more pressure to it. Then we have box 6. Box 6 is how you probably used to use colored pencils. It's where you did the absolute heaviest that you could possibly do. And so that's why I have it as a smaller box, because you can just fill it in your old way. I'm noticing when I zoom out that my box 4 and 3 look a lot alike, so I'm just gonna make my 4 a little bit darker. Sometimes until you fill up all the boxes, you can't really tell which ones are looking too much alike. Even I can't tell until I get all the boxes filled up. There we go. Let's notice some things about the paper. At the top of our first boxes that we have is it says red training wheels, blue training wheels. It's because I consider these lines as training wheels. Eventually, when we get over here, we'll have some training wheels with the lines, and then there won't be any lines. You're going to start doing fades with no lines at all. Example with the lines, example without the lines. It's just like learning how to ride a bike. You have your training wheels, you get used to riding your bike like that, and then we take the training wheels off for the real thing. In your pack of 24 colored pencils, you probably have 2 blues. Choose the darker one. We're gonna go and put a level 1. It's as light as this. We're barely even touching the paper with our colored pencil. I'm holding it from the back. I'm using the side of the colored pencil, and I'm just gently scraping tiny little pieces off onto the paper. There we go. For box number 2, I'm going to make it look just like box number 1. And whenever I successfully make box number 2 look like box number 1, I'll then add another layer to it. There's my layer 1, now going in with a layer 2. Keeping my pressure light. Level 1 and level 2 is light pressure. Level 3 is our medium pressure. Going into the edges, it's okay if you go outside the box. We're still learning. It's okay for some circles to go outside of the box. I'm not that worried about that. All right, time for level 3 pressure. Going in with some medium pressure, matching it to box number 2. We will take breaks. There's no reason to scribble or try to sweep or rush. Notice how you don't see any of my circles. At the beginning you might see circles, but once I interlock them, you don't see circles anymore. I need to add another layer to make level 3 slightly darker than level 2. Time for level 4. Can put in some medium pressure to match that level 3. Doing another layer to make it slightly darker than that level 3. Remember to circle in the opposite direction sometimes to help interlock those circles and to help push the pigment into different sides of the paper, of the surface of the paper. Time for, I'll zoom out to show you, level 5 and level 6. I can go in with some kind of medium to heavy pressure just to get this in there. We're trying to match the level 4. Now that I've matched the 4, I can go a bit darker. I'm pushing down pretty heavy, not as heavy as I can possibly go. I'm saving that for last. Pushing down pretty heavy on this next layer to get it to be different from box 4. And then box 6 can put me in a pretty medium to heavy layer to get it going, to fill the paper up. Now that 6 matches 5. Then I'm gonna readjust, move my hand to the front of the pencil. Instead of using the side, use kind of like how you're writing. That's gonna get a lot of pressure when you hold the pencil, like how you're gonna write something. So when I zoom out, can see all of my different pressures.